What's up, guys? It's Marissa with Barely Keeping It Together, and today I wanted to chat with you all about my design process.
I'm Marissa. I'm a borderline crazy dog mom, entrepreneur, interior design obsessed, pop culture enthusiast. I'm here to bring you all things interiors, life hacks, personal development, organization, and manifestation. I'm the kind of woman who doesn't have the patience to get through this recording. So let's get into it. This is Barely Keeping It Together.
Now, before I get into today's video, if you do enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. It does so much for growing creators like myself here on YouTube. If you give the video a thumbs up, tells the algorithm, all the good things. First of all, I choose to design as an art and not a science. And you can do it the opposite. You can absolutely choose to be a designer who designs through science. Now, what I like to think of this as is, if you guys know anything about cooking versus baking, right? Cooking is all about feeling and iterating as you go and just changing things. Maybe your recipe is never the same twice. Whereas baking, it's more of an exact science where you are trying to make sure all of your proportions are the exact same as the recipe so that you come out with the same exact precise result every single time, because baking requires precision, whereas cooking is sort of spontaneous. So I choose to design as a cook rather than a baker because it's just natural and intuitive to how I flow and how I am as a person. And to be honest, if I tried to do it as a science, it wouldn't be fun for me and I probably wouldn't do it well because that's just not how I operate as a human. It's not my make. So that's a little bit of background about how I look at design in the first place. I also wanted to mention really quickly, a lot of YouTubers do choose to design as a science rather than an art, and this is absolutely no shade to them, but they will look up something like Restoration Hardware or CB2 and really just mimic completely that exact style because it's a formula that works. CB2 or Restoration Hardware has already figured out that formula. So if they go in and they copy bit by bit, they're able to just create that exact same look in their home. Now, again, absolutely no shade to them. If that's what works for them, more power to you. Sometimes I wish I could do it a little bit more as a science, but that's just not who I am. I have to sort of intuitively flow into my design, and that makes, one of the things I like about it is that all my designs and all my projects come out looking unique, and they all sort of in the end up being a little bit different than the exact plan I went in with. So that's just one thing to know. Just depending on who you are and how you like to design your spaces, how you can figure out if you're going to look at it more as a science or an art. But either way, the steps I'm going to tell you about today are going to work for the design process, whether you're sort of an exact sciences type person or you're kind of intuitively go with the flow artistic type of a person like me. Anyway, let's get into my design process. The first thing that I do is I just look at the space. You have to know the space that you're designing and then determine what all of the needs and functions of the space are. If we are in this room, for example, and by the way, if you guys did not check out my YouTube design reveal video, I will link it above. But for example, this room, I have multiple needs. I needed a workspace, I needed a storage space, I needed a filming space, and again, part of that filming space had to be a direct-to-cam sit-down shot. So I knew that those were all of the needs that I had within the space. So you need to know the space, like the size, the location, et cetera, know the space, and then know everything that you're going to use the space for so that you can design it to meet those purposes. Not so sexy. But now, step number 2 is a little more fun, a little bit more sexy, and you get inspired to create the space that you want. So the number one place to source images and inspiration is Pinterest, of course, right? So I like to go on Pinterest. If I have an idea of the vibe I'm going for in a space, I can search those keywords. Now, just so you guys know, think of Pinterest as Google, but for images, because it is a visual database search. So anything you want to see, you can literally just type into that bar and you're gonna get it. So whether it is modern aesthetic, if it is modern farmhouse, if it's traditional, if it's glam, you can find whatever it is that you want. You could also type in something like oversized primary bedroom. That is a big design dilemma that a lot of people have, is they move into this house with this huge primary bedroom and they don't know what to do with the space. Literally Google it into that Pinterest machine. You're gonna get tons of inspiration and you can pin the images you like. Now, on Pinterest, I like to do two different things. First of all, I have a dream home board, which is literally any image that I see that is of interiors or design that I like, I will pin it there. But then for each project, or for example, for this whole house, I have a specific board that sort of meets what that project is looking for. So you could have a living room, you could have a dream bedroom, you could have office, you could have blah, blah, blah redesign. You can do whatever you want. So I like to have this big board of everything that inspires me, because I don't want to stop myself from just pinning everything I absolutely love. But then, you know, if I'm going for a specific aesthetic within one room, I can pin to that room's board and curate an aesthetic or a vibe for that room within that board. So you just want to get inspired. Now, maybe you're different from me. You can also get inspired. A place I love to go, by the way, is CB2. Like, for whatever reason, walking through this space there, just like seeing all the knickknacks, touching, feeling, really gets me inspired. So maybe you want to go to a design store of, you know, even if you can't afford it, if it's like Our House or Restoration Hardware. By the way, if you live in a major city and you have a Restoration Hardware with the restaurant, I mean, when COVID's over, but like the Chicago Restoration Hardware is unbelievable. I know the Boston, I think the Philly one is as well, but forgive me, I don't know all the Restoration Hardwares, but go through, walk through the space, get the idea of how they're putting things together, the colors, the textures, that kind of thing. Just get really inspired by design that is your style and makes you feel however you want to feel in the space, whether that's luxury, casual, etc., etc. So step 2 is get inspired for your space. So step number 3 is, again, maybe not so sexy, but super practical, and it's where we sort of get our hands on the design, which is figure out what you have versus figure out what you need. So it's very rare that you're starting from scratch unless you're doing a complete reno and trashing everything. Usually if you're refreshing a room or moving or decorating, you already own things and you don't, one, have the budget to just get rid of everything. By the way, your sister's on a budget too, but 2, like, you don't want to get rid of everything. Maybe you love that Pottery Barn couch you bought for your last home, whatever it is. So determine everything you have versus everything you would like to have within the space. So maybe, for example, you know you need a desk, you just don't know which desk it's gonna be. Now, keep in mind, we have the opportunity coming up to upcycle a lot of things. I am the queen of upcycling. I'm constantly doing DIYs, painting, refinishing, doing different things with pieces I already have, own, and love. The bed that I sleep in now has been 4 different colors in my lifetime, right? Like, I have dressers that have just been iterated over and over again. Now, maybe you're not a constant DIYer like myself, but you can just upcycle things you already own. So the bed that I have now, the lines of it are so classic, but in a pine that it was in the 80s didn't look so hot. But now that it's painted black, it's a lot more modern and, you know, to today's aesthetic. So keep in mind that the things you already have can be given new life. So this step is figure out what you have versus figure out what you're going to need to get for your new design. All right, so step number 4 is creating the mood board for your space. Now, a mood board can be, well, a mood board / design plan for your space. So a mood board is getting the vibe and the aesthetic and the feel and the colors that you want to use in the space, whereas a design plan is creating the actual plan of the pieces that you're going to pair together, what you're going to be purchasing, what you're going to be painting, all of those things. So I want step number 4 to be the mood board, and step number 5 to be the design plan. But either way, I use Canva for all of this. Now, creating mood boards and creating design plans in Canva is a whole other, very searched category here on YouTube. So I actually did decide to do a second video to launch today as well. And it is step-by-step how I create my mood boards and my design plans in Canva. And you can find that linked above. So I have both of these videos for you, but I didn't want to put the step-by-step of the Canva in this video if that's not what you're looking for in this video. So go check out my mood board and design plan video in Canva up here, and then learn the process of creating the entire design here as we are here, okay? So what you're gonna wanna do is curate the aesthetic that you're going for specifically for the room in a mood board in Canva, and then from there, you can create the actual design plan within Canva. One of the things I love about this is the ability to sort of mix and match. There are many times that I'm designing a room and I think in my head something is gonna work, and as I actually start playing with it in Canva, I realize those things don't go together as well as I thought they were gonna go together. I'm pretty good at visualizing how something is gonna be, and I get it wrong all the time, so I know a lot of people do as well. So playing around and creating your actual design plan of the pieces you're gonna pair together in Canva is imperative before you buy things, because everybody makes mistakes and returning things is stressful and hard. So I prefer if you didn't have to do that. So we're gonna create our mood board in Canva and we're gonna create our design plan. All right, so after we have done that, our next step is to shop and DIY everything that we need for the room. So as I said, this is the time that we're gonna upcycle those pieces, we're gonna paint things, we're gonna go to the store and purchase all of the pieces that we need to put the room together. Because again, to my reference of cooking versus baking, this is the time where we're cooking, we're zhuzhing. We go to Home Goods and we see an accessory is different than the one that we planned, but it still kind of gets the vibe. That's what gives you this curated feel over time, rather than planning out every accessory you were gonna buy online and then buying those specific ones. Like this art, all this stuff sort of was iterated, over time and shopping, different from my plan for the actual design room. By the way, I will include a shot of the mood board for this room so you guys can see my vision of where I'm sitting would look like versus the reality of how this looks, to show you guys exactly what I mean of cooking versus baking, art versus science. So here is where we are shopping, we are DIYing, we are gathering all of our items. Once we have done that, the next step is executing our design plan. So that includes painting your space, putting everything in it, whether it's hanging wall hangings, hanging your window treatments, doing all the things that you planned on doing in your design plan. Here is where we execute. And then guess what happens? Everything doesn't work out the way that we think it's gonna work out on paper all the time. We always have to iterate one thing or another. So whether that's the accessories, the placement, the layout. For example, this space, I thought that where I'm sitting here was gonna be like over there, and what's over there I thought was gonna be over here, and things change. When I was actually in the space, it just felt better in a different layout, and that is okay. Now, layout usually doesn't change as often, but sometimes it does, but accessories, small things, lighting, these things are gonna change, and guess what? If we come back here, which we will in a month or two, the accessories here are for sure gonna change, because if you're like me and you're a creative, you're gonna constantly be zhuzhing. Everything isn't gonna always be exactly the same. I'm constantly changing things, moving things around, but that's because I love design and decor. Now, if you aren't that type of person, you can set it up once, leave it there for a year, revisit it next year. That's totally fine as well. But setting up, executing your design, and then you go into iteration. And iteration is where you stay for a long time until it's time to redesign that room because you're over that style or whatever the case may be. But I don't want to scare you with all of that. There's absolutely no reason to start thinking about whatever the next design for this room is while I'm still in the middle of this design. Anyways, you guys, That is how I design a space from start all the way through execution and iteration of my design. If you guys are interested in how to make a mood board and a design plan in Canva, I will link it down in the description below. Otherwise, I would love it if you gave this video a thumbs up. It does so much for subscribers like myself here on YouTube, and subscribe to my channel as well. Otherwise, I will chat with you guys later. Bye!